Thinking Big Tribe, I have a very special guest today, Derrick Kinney, and he is from Good Money Framework. And I'll tell you, I've been really looking forward to having you on the podcast because I think this is the stuff that you talk about on your website and then obviously on your podcast and stuff is such a huge, I think there's such a huge need for it. And I think there is such a stigmatism or a bad energy around money. And I think that is just and I think everybody grows up with that. I mean, I really do. I mean, I bet you all the listeners that are on here with us right now and listening to this, I guarantee if I give you a few money beliefs, everyone will be able to finish those sentences. For instance, I bet most people could finish, money is the root of all evil. Right. Everyone, right. I mean, that's how we're believed. That's how we're enculturated. Money doesn't grow on trees. My favorite is those people are filthy rich, and it's these beliefs. And when they're saying filthy rich, they're not meaning that they're unshowered and they don't. Right. Their lawns are. They mean because they think that money is filthy. They think money is dirty, and one of the sayings that you have. Absolutely love is good money in the hands of good people gets good work done. That is such a good thing. Can you explain some of what you do with the money mindset?
Yeah, Sean, first of all, great to be with you. I've been looking forward to our conversation together. Know that you've got a great audience that really devours this type of message. I built a financial planning practice over 25 years, nationally recognized, loved it, and reached a critical point where I decided to sell that successful business to launch a Good Money Framework. And the catalyst for that was over the years, I would hear constantly that people felt like money was bad, that if you had too much money, if you were too successful, if you owned a business, if you were a corporate titan, then you had to be bad. At least that was the presumption. And then you had to defend yourself as to why you weren't. And not that there aren't bad people out there, not that there aren't people doing bad things with their money, but to assume that that was the premise from the beginning was all wrong to me. Because I like money. I really like money. I've liked it since I was a kid. I enjoyed making it. I've enjoyed helping others make money. It just brings me flat out joy to see money grow because it's such a powerful lever for good. And so culture today, right now, there's so much villainization. There's so much venom toward people with money. Now, again, am I defending everyone that's rich and saying they're perfect, they make no mistakes, they don't do any bad things? No. What I'm saying, though, is I don't want that perception that people have of those people who are, quote, wealthy to discourage themselves from becoming wealthy as well. Because what we do, we need more good people making good money to do good work in the world. And that's how we take back the world itself post-COVID and we remake it into the world that we really want it to look like.
Yeah, and I think so. And I think we're born with it, or I don't think we're born. I think we're enculturated with our money beliefs, and I think that is at least in the U.S., that is a huge thing. That money is villainized, and to me, if you're a good person, money does great things. If you're a bad, it just enhances. Money's just a tool, and it enhances. Yes. If we're good, we're good. If we're bad, and it's just a tool. Money itself is not dirty. It's not bad. And one of the things I'm a firm believer, and I know you talk about this too, is you have to give to get. And I don't care what level you're at. If you are filthy rich, and again, there's that saying, filthy rich. If you have a lot of money, I guarantee you've been giving some away, because if you don't give, you're not going to keep. You're not going to be able to keep what you have. It'll be short-lived. It'll be short-term. And I truly believe that you have to give in order to get and to use the money. What are you like when you get with a new client? What are some of the beliefs, or what are some of the things, the biggest issues that you're seeing with people out there in terms of their beliefs or their relationship with money?
Well, one thing I like to do is when we're talking with people face to face is ask them, go back to your childhood. Think back to your earliest memory. what was money discussed like? What did people talk about money? How did they describe it? Do you picture the fist hitting the table and your dad or your grandfather or grandmother saying, if only we had more money? And you began to think, my goodness, it's money and the lack of it that's holding back our family. Or someone said, boy, those people have money and we don't. And then you began to have that belief that there's the haves and the have-nots, and that's extremely dangerous. Or there's simply just not the education of, well, we're just not meant to have money. You've got to go to college. You have to have a business. It's only reserved for certain groups of people. They have the money. And so as I talk to people, Sean, it's interesting to begin to peel back that onion one conversation at a time. And you find out that there was some of those beliefs that were there. And let me tell you a personal story. Growing up, people ask, well, Derrick, were you poor growing up? Is that what led you to this? And I said, well, you'd expect me to say, we lived in a car, we were in line for government cheese. That wasn't us. We were middle class, probably lower middle class. But I remember two things. I remember going to a friend's house that had a 2-story house, thinking to myself, this must be what it's like to have won the lottery. I'd never been inside a 2-story house before. And then on a baseball team I played on, I was the one kid that had shoes from Kmart. Everybody else had the nice white, crisp, high-dollar cleats. And Derrick had the blue shoes of all things from Kmart. And I was just embarrassed. It wasn't that my parents said, hey, money is holding us back or we don't have enough money. I just saw my parents making decisions. And really, I found out they didn't have a lot of money at the time, but doing the best they could. But I realized that money is a way to differentiate yourself from other people. And it's interesting, going back to your earlier question, people ask, Derrick, why did you sell your business? And I think it's important on your podcast, Thinking Big, to talk about why should you bet on yourself? Because so many people think that money is the key to their success. But ultimately, Sean, I believe you are the key to your success, and money can simply just accentuate that. Every year I go away on a sabbatical. I take about 5 days by myself, and I think and I journal and I pray. And I ask myself 3 questions. First is, how can I be a better husband? How can I be a better father? And how can I be a better business leader? And those 3 questions guide me through that time by myself. And my philosophy is there's 52 weeks in the year. It only makes sense to take one of those weeks to make sure the other 51 weeks go as smooth as possible. And I'm focused on what it is I really want. Well, this particular sabbatical, this was July of 2019. I was vacillating with where am I at in the practice? What's the next chapter of my life look like? And I was in full buy mode of acquiring practices. And a consultant who I'd worked with just flat out asked me the question, Derrick, you're 52 years old. Why do you want to keep growing? Most people want to scale back a bit. And it really annoyed me, Sean, to be honest. It really caused me to say, look, just shut up and just find me some more businesses I want to buy. I want to keep growing. Well, I felt that voice inside me say, Derrick, when you go on your sabbatical, you need to ask yourself this question: what is it that you really want for yourself? And so I'm there in Boston, they're at the W Hotel in July of 2019, and I begin to write out a list of all the things that I would enjoy doing. I wrote down their national TV, which I've enjoyed doing, local TV. Would be cool to launch a podcast, write a book, speak. And on that list was not being a financial advisor. I was shocked. 25 years, great practice, loved my clients, but it wasn't giving me the joy that I once experienced. I called my wife and said, honey, are you sitting down? I thought in my mind, Sean, that we would probably wait about 2 years, build the value up, and then transition it out.
Right.
She said, Derrick, you've bet on yourself before. Let's bet on yourself again. Let's go and sell it. Pardon me. So fast forward January of 2020, I am now selling my practice, launching this new business. And so the reason I say that is early on, about 10 years earlier, I bought another financial planning practice, and the whole thing went belly up for the most part. We teetered on bankruptcy The people we bought the practice from came back, competed against us. It was terrible, lawsuits, all those things. But what it taught me was that you have to bet on yourself. And then by staying in the game, physically moving my office somewhere else so clients wouldn't see the other advisors and I'd lose more business and so forth, it actually grew and became one of the best investments I had. And what that led me to do was to buy other practices because I had had such a terrible experience. But I could look myself in the mirror and say, Derrick, if you bet on yourself once and you worked through it, you can do it again. And I think right now, I want your listeners to hear, especially post-COVID, you may have faced the loss of a job. You may be questioning, what am I doing? You may be wondering, what's my purpose right now? And I believe right now is the time to really think big, to bet on yourself and really use yourself and your abilities to go make more money, to truly do more good.
Yeah. And I think with what's happened with with the pandemic and everything that's going on, I don't think there's ever been a better time in history to go and do what you did, to go and do what we're doing. I mean, we're at a time now where I think we have the best opportunity we've ever had for entrepreneurship, for doing what we're passionate about, for doing what we love. And one of the things that you said in there that I really want the listeners listening right now to pick up on is you learned from your mistake. So you purchased that one company and it almost went belly up, but you didn't give up. You kept going and you learned. What was the biggest learning coming out of that failed one that drove you to look at other ones differently?
Well, this will sound funny, but what I came to realize was when you bet on yourself, you have to expect a higher volume of problems, and they're more intense problems. Typically, the people who encounter the most problems and can find their way through it tend to make the most money. That's why few people make all the money they can, because they're not willing to go through those level of problems. Number one, it's scary. You think you're going to look foolish. You might lose everything. I remember some dark, dark nights going to bed thinking, what am I going to do? I've never, ever been to this precipice of losing everything. But what I found was 1 hour at a time, one client at a time, just simply believe and stay focused. And I could either bail and go backwards and file bankruptcy, or I could choose to go forward and just make my way. And that's what I learned, Sean. And that's what helped me then purchase several other businesses after that, because I learned more about myself. College will teach you a lot, but it's that school of hard knocks that's really the education that pays the highest dividends.
Yeah, and I think what you said in there is, you got to that spot and you kept going. I think that is one of the most important things that entrepreneurs can do, is because we're all going to hit that spot. We're all going to have to make that choice to burn the boats. We have to make that choice to either, as my dad used to say, shit or get off the pot. You have to, and everybody goes to that point. And I think what a lot of people do is that's when they retreat. That's when they give up. And to me, that is, I don't know if it's the universe testing you and saying, okay, I want to see if you're really ready for that next step. I want to see if you can really make it forward. But I think it's that point where you were at that you say, you know what, this is it. We're all in. I think that is what makes a true leader. I think anybody that's very successful has gone through that. And I think that's one of the most important things to learn is whatever you do, you've got to be persistent. You keep going until you've won, until you've made it, until you're that success. And one of the other things that you brought up, not really in this, but it is, you talked about journaling. How important has journaling been? You talked about you take that 1 week a year to make sure your other 51 weeks are successful. I'm a true believer, a big believer in journaling and sitting down. As a matter of fact, I use a thing called a Remarkable, which has it's like a paperless tablet, but It has no connectivity. There's no alarms. There's no bings. There's nothing to distract me when I'm doing my writing. Because the distractions, but we have to journal. We have to. How much do you think that's impacted your life?
Well, journaling to me is not just a highlight reel to go back and remember the wins that you had, because those losses can drown the wins out so easily. It's just a reminder of the struggle. And while I don't want to depress anyone on this podcast, one of the lessons I've learned is that if you're going to achieve and you want to do bigger things, then you've got to expect a higher level of adversity to greet you at the door. And if there's not adversity, you're probably not doing something as big as you need to be pursuing. That's just the reality. If it's so easy, it's probably not going to get you where you want to go. And let me tell you a story about that, Sean, because one of the things that led me to journaling was something that occurred to me back in high school. It was a traumatic event. I was teased mercilessly about my nose. You can see I've got the full package here. And, growing up, kids let me know about it. And junior high school was very, very hard for me. My mom, one day when I was in junior high, gave me a book called Go For It by Judy Zarifa. In that book, it talked about, of all things, how to be popular, how to get along with others, how to be friends with others. And that book, I would rarely ever say this, but that book literally changed the course of my life. And I had this epiphany when I was a sophomore in high school that my way out of this would be to run for class office. So I decided to run for junior class president and made the posters up and so forth. And so ran the campaign. At the end of the day, we're at the end of gym class of all things. And the principal comes on in his gravelly voice and says, and the winner is Derrick Kinney. And we're all cheering and stuff. He said, oh, no, sorry, mistake. So-and-so is the president. Derrick is vice president. Well, man, I felt deflated. I felt embarrassed. I mean, it was nice to be voted second, but it just felt like we didn't go all the way. And so the next year, an idea came into my mind. As I looked around the school, I saw there were silos of students all over. Back in those days, there was we called it the rock and roll crowd. There was the country western crowd, the athletic crowd, the academic crowd, the band crowd, and everybody sort of hung out in their own areas. Nobody came together. And the idea that I had is, what if I approached each of the leaders of those groups and said, hey, I want you to support me for student body president. I want to get a picture of you and I shaking hands, and we'll put that picture above where you stand with all the people in your group. That way we're all in this together. So for example, the rock and roll guy put on there, hey, let's rock the vote with Derrick, those kind of things. And basically, Sean, what I realized was I was a nobody, but with the heart of a somebody. And that election that day, at the end of the day, I ran against 5 other people. They said, and the president is Derrick Kinney. And we all paused wondering, is he going to say somebody else's name? And he didn't. And we won. And the key there is it wasn't any longer the me show. It wasn't the Derrick worried about people teasing me and focusing on myself and just hunkering down. It was the we show, bringing people together, helping them create something bigger than themselves. And that's how I learned to work out of this, is that by helping people do something that they couldn't do on their own, that was the key to success. That led me then to be student body president in my college, same philosophy, launched the business. And so it was that moment in high school when I was at the darkest point, feeling like it was just me being teased mercilessly, that I found a way to work out of that. And so I only share that with you because that led me to journaling, to then capture all those moments and experiences, because literally life goes by so fast. Someone will ask me on Monday, hey, Derrick, how was your weekend? And I think, I don't know, that was like 3 days ago. It goes by so fast. But just by taking 5 minutes a day, writing down, here's the highlights of my day, here's what I learned, and a powerful question, if I could do this day over again, what would I have done? That way you're guiding yourself to make positive change along the way, not beating yourself up, but just saying, Derrick, let me walk alongside you, do this differently tomorrow, and it's going to be a better tomorrow.
Oh, I think that is such a great philosophy and something that we need to do. I mean, we all have the tendency to have that negative self-talk, beating ourselves up, and we don't take that, that side-by-side walk. We always, that was so stupid. Why the hell did you do that? Who do you think you are? We always do that. But I also think that you brought up something that is, not only is it very important, but I think it's very unique of how you looked at things. And I think, when you lost that first, that first one, that you used your, not really imagination, but you used your awareness to go out and look and see how people really are. Oh, I think that's so important. Being aware and using our imagination and seeing outside of ourselves. And man, that's a great story. That is, and powerful. I wanted to go back and I'm going to re-listen to that section, because what you did, that's how we can win at anything. That same type of philosophy, we can win at whatever it is that we want. I think that was to me, that's some of the gold that's going to be within this podcast. Now, one of the things up on your site, you have 7 steps to good money framework. Can you describe some of these steps on what this framework is, and what does this framework embody? Why do I need this framework?
Well, if you're not making the money that you feel you deserve, and you're not making the impact in the world you've always wanted, I believe there's a better way for your money today. And as we come out of COVID, I call this the giant reset button. People are asking themselves, what do I need money for? Not that they're dismissing money, not that they're saying I no longer need it, but they're asking themselves, having gone through what they did, many of them scaling back, not spending as much money. We saw the savings rate go up dramatically. It's almost like when we remodeled our kitchen. I remember vividly the construction people put all the sheets of plastic up, and suddenly all we had were a stack of paper plates and some plastic forks and a microwave and a card table. And we learned to live in that little 4x4 area in our kitchen. And once all the plastic came back down and the kitchen was back together again, it took us a while to readapt to having all this stuff, because you just kind of learn to live minimally. And, my wife and daughters went to Haiti on a mission trip many years ago. And I remember vividly them talking about going over there. It took them about a week to get reacclimated here, because there was so much that they had that they realized they didn't even need to have. And one part of the good money framework is recognizing what is the purpose of money. So many people on their deathbed or as they get older, they realize, great, I've accumulated this money, but I thought I'd be happier than I would be. I thought I'd have more meaning in my life than I would. And they realize they don't. And so what I realized, the missing piece of that is what's called the generosity purpose. So most people start off their planning with, I want to retire at 55 or 60. I want to travel. I want to go. I want to see. I want to do. Spend time with my spouse or my grandkids. And that's great. But oftentimes they get there again and realize, well, I thought there'd be more to this. And the one thing that's been proven over and over again, Sean, is when people can tie a cause to their cash, when they can tie a purpose to their profits, when they can put meaning to their money, that's when true fulfillment begins to take root. So here's how that would look. Let's say someone listening right now is working in a company and they feel dissatisfied with the money they're making, not what they feel they deserve. The typical tendency is to want to go into their boss and demand, I want to make more money. Give me a raise or I'm leaving. Well, these days, because of the great resignation and people leaving, your boss might just say, you know what, here's a raise. But it's not going to be because you added value. It's because you just don't want to be that person they have to replace. So my contention is, if you can find a way to add tangible value to your company right now, ask yourself, how can I increase sales? How can I bring in more customers? How can I reduce expenses? How can I build capacity for my boss or my supervisor? And say to them, I love working here, but I want to do more. I want to make more money. But to do that, I know I need to add more value. And here's a couple ideas I put together. Could we work up a plan where if we do this over the next 3 to 6 months, I will then have an incentive plan or a raise in my salary to compensate me for helping you grow? Well, when you pull back, Sean, and think about that, what boss in their right mind would say no to that? See, you're adding value, and the way we tie that in then is using your motivation to say, you know what cause whether it was when I was younger or today, do I see where there is a wrong that I want to right? There's an injustice in the world that I want to take care of, whether it's human trafficking, clean water, poverty, homelessness, whatever the issue is that's personal to you. And you can use that to motivate and say, you know what, I'm going to take a percentage of this raise I get and I'm going to start supporting this cause I believe in. So now you're making more money, which is a beautiful thing. I'm a big fan of that. But then you're helping support the causes that you never thought you could play a part in. And now you're making a difference. That's where fulfillment really comes in. And Sean, let me share one more story with you. This is for those listeners that may be business owners. So had a client come in the office. This was about 5 years ago. And you know when something's bothering somebody without them even talking, you can see them wearing it all over them. Well, Dave sat down in the office and we made some small talk. And finally, I broke the ice and said, Dave, look, I can tell something's bothering you. Spill the beans. Well, he went on to tell me, he said, Derrick, I feel like I'm just showing up at the office and not excited about what I'm doing anymore. My kids are working there. The business is going very well, but I don't feel like I'm really making an impact. And for some reason, Sean, the words simply shot out of my mouth. Dave, what's a cause that you care deeply about? I don't know where those words came from, but they just found themselves on the table sitting there between Dave and I. Dave looked stunned, but he said, you know, Derrick, it's funny you say that because a couple years ago, my family and I went on a trip overseas. In this particular village that we went to, the guide mentioned that this group of villagers really had a lack of education, and it was holding back their kids from achieving what their parents wanted them to achieve. They needed a school building to protect them from the elements and really provide the experience they wanted. And Dave said that he and his wife talked, and when they got back, they would want to do something, but time got the best of them. Things happened, and they just forgot about it. But my asking that question brought it back. And he said, I would love to pay for a school in that village. And I said, Dave, what if you did this? What if over the next 12 months, you set a goal to increase your business by, let's say, 20%, and then you took half of that increase and you used that to build that school? His eyes got as big as saucers. You could see the energy flowing back into him. So we had some more small talk. He left. He comes back in the office about 3 months later. He looked younger. He looked more energetic. He was on fire. And I said, Dave, I got to tell you, you look completely different. What has changed? He said, Derrick, I got to tell you, at first I was skeptical about what you said about increasing sales to give money to the school, but we did it. And he said, I began sharing my vision with my customers. They bought into it. They've referred more people to work with us because they know a portion of our profits go to fund this school. We've already paid for half of that school. Man, I got to tell you, I don't get overly emotional with clients, but it was a moment where there's two guys sharing this moment together where you see the potential being extracted from another person, where they're making an impact in the world. And that same opportunity, I believe, is now available for every business owner out there. That when you find a purpose that you can tie to your profits and share that with your customers and make that a differentiator. So many products and services these days are so commoditized where customers, they don't know difference between this product or this product. But if you say, look, there's a lot of people selling this, but I want you to know we provide great service. We stand by what we represent. We will help you do whatever it takes. But more importantly, a portion of all of our profits go to support either this cause that's important to me, the business owner, or we've helped many realtors say, look, you get to pick out the cause you want, buyer or seller, because you selected us. And then I'm going to take a portion of my profits and you get to pick out a cause that's important to you, and I'll make that donation in your name. So the bottom line is you're making more money, but people are simply attracted to working with you because they're part of something bigger. We see this with Tom's Shoes, Bombas Socks. I saw a commercial with Shaquille O'Neal for Papa John's Pizza. They called it Pizza with a Purpose. The bottom line, and research backs this up by many academians, that says, look, people want a good deal, but they're more inclined to spend a bit more for the quality and if your product or service is making the world better. So that generosity purpose, Sean, is really the linchpin, the foundation of the entire Good Money framework, and what I think motivates and differentiates anything else that's out there to truly get people to make the money they deserve and make the impact that they've always wanted.
So now I know that you talk about philanthropic investing or philanthropic investor. Is that what this ties into? Because to me, and I think that's a great motivator. I think that's a great philosophy to have. I think that for me, like for instance, one of the things that I do is I do a Think and Grow Rich challenges that I do for free for people. But I have them do donations, and all that goes to Feeding America. So every time they do the $40 for the challenge, 100% of that goes to Feeding America.
I love that.
One, I know I have to show up. I don't want someone to pay $40 and them not get value and that money not be worthless. So it drives both. I think it drives both the people that follow me, the people that do these, as well as me, because I know that if you're going to pay me $40 for this, this challenge, I better show up. I better give you value. And I think that's I think that I'm going to start looking at it that way. That is that's a great way to look at it. And it will help motivate. For me, it'll help me be motivated to do even better. That gives me the burning desire or the need to go and do that. That is fantastic advice.
Well, Sean, I'll tell you this story as well. I was thinking back as I began to write the book, Good Money Revolution, which comes out 2/22/22. I just couldn't think of a better way to launch a revolution than 2/22/22. But
that's fantastic.
One of the parts of the book, there's a story that I wrote about why is this so personal to me? I began to think, hey, the world needs this, but then I began to realize and ask myself, Derrick, I want to make sure that I'm practicing what I'm writing. And what I realized was a core part of my business all along was investing back in my local community. We would always give money to local education. Education is a big thing for me because I thought back to when I was in school, I would have loved to have had someone come to my school and recognize top leaders or see my favorite teachers recognized or see someone investing back. And so oftentimes it's the void that you see in your life that you want to then fill when you have the talents and abilities to do it. So I began to recognize a student of the month at my alma mater where I went to high school. So imagine the joy of me walking down the halls where I used to walk when I was campaigning and running for office and as a student. And now I'm back, 20, 25 years later. So that was fun to do that. But then I realized by recognizing a teacher of the month at a couple different local high schools, I was giving $50 a month to these students, or rather the teachers and the students. It was like the teachers won the lottery, Sean. To me, $50 is $50, but they thought, oh my gosh, $50 because they're spending so much of their own money on supplies and those kind of things. But what it did is it instilled belief in them. And here's what began to happen. People began to call me to want to work with me. And finally, one day I said, I have to ask you, why did you pick me to be your financial advisor? And I remember specifically one person, they actually brought a picture from the newspaper. They said, Derrick, we see you each month giving money to these teachers and we support education. We want to work with someone who believes in what we believe. And it was like an epiphany. Sean, it was a moment where I realized people aren't just working with me because I was good with money, could help them achieve their goals. They expected that. They expected a financial advisor to be good at what they said they were good at. But the extra, the decommoditizer was you were involved in the community. And so from then on, I became known as the advisor who was in the Arlington community, always investing back. And so yes, would it cost me money? But I never looked at it as a cost. It was an investment in the local community because it always came back in spades. I didn't do it for that reason, but I just realized I can have fun giving and making my community better. And then when you walk into a room, you're no longer the stranger. You're the guy that always supports the community. There's a warmth that greets you when you walk in the room. So I tell you that because I want all of our business owners listening to realize that's who you want to be. People today, I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt, they want to work with people who are competent, confident, know that they're good at what they do, and they can believe in what they do, but they want to work with people who support the causes they believe in. It's more important now than ever.
I think you should just rename this book and have it a marketing book. Because, have you ever thought of just, you know what, forget this financial, I'm going to go into marketing because, or politics. I mean, this is, you're running a marketing and that is some fantastic things to do for a local community. And a lot of people, we just don't think like that. And we don't, I mean, this is like, wow, that's genius. Wow. I mean, I don't know what to say, but man, that is, I can't wait to pick up the book. It's going to be, is it going to be on Amazon and everything? I assume it's going to be out on.
Yeah, it'll be on Amazon. It'll be full online. People can pre-order the book right now. It's in actually the final editing stages, but we're getting some great reviews from high quality people. The endorsements are great. The bottom line though, Sean, this is all about a movement. It's all about instilling in people a new way to think about their money, no longer just to pad their wallets or pad their bank accounts. I like to make money, and I want each of you listening to make money and go make a lot of it, but make it with the mentality of how can you use some of it or a lot of it for good, where you know that you're making money, you're adding value to people's lives, and you're also helping right the wrongs that you see in the causes most important to you. I mean, that's the trifecta, if I could ever describe one.
Yeah. And so if you, in the next, I don't know, 12 to 15 months, what is the biggest thing that you're excited about? What are you most excited to do besides the book launch, which is huge, by the way? That is such a huge accomplishment. And going back, but I truly love to have authors on the podcast, and only because to me, when you write a book, you've spent 25 years doing what you do. And for me to be able to sit down in, a week, 2 weeks, however long it takes to read the book, and to get the gold nuggets of 25 years of experience is unbelievable. And so thank you so much for taking the time. I would love to write a book, but God, that is a lot of work. So congratulations on getting that part. That is a huge thing. That's a huge feat to do.
Well, one thing I've learned, someone once said all of us have a book inside of us, and it's just the habit of writing on a regular basis. My first book I wrote about 15 years ago, geared for financial advisors on actually how to work with the media, how to market themselves. And what I learned is I wouldn't allow myself to go to my office until I wrote 3 Microsoft Word pages, which were 3 double-spaced pages. That was 1,000 words a day. And as long as I did that, then at the end of a week, I had 5,000 words. At the end of a month, I've got 20,000 words. I mean, so suddenly now, just by that discipline of daily practice and exercise of doing it, you begin to develop that habit. So I just want to encourage, Sean, you're such a great host. And I would just encourage you by saying, even though you haven't written a book, I bet you've inspired many people to either write a book or write a blog or get their ideas out. So thank you for people like you who give people like me a voice to encourage other people to help them keep thinking big as well.
Yeah. And going back to, so what if, again, in 2 years, what are you most excited about moving in the future? What are what's going to drive you in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, what I'm most excited about is this message being accepted and embraced and implemented. I have a passion, as I said, for small business owners as a financial advisor, for those people who are in sales and real estate and insurance, any type of consultative selling where you need to connect relationally with your customer or client. I believe this philosophy is tailor-made for you in every community across this great country and even around the world. I believe that once people recognize they're working with people who are smart and talented and believe in what they do, but also have that extra circle that they believe in the community around them, and want to do what's important to the customer and the client, helping their world get better, it's a value added model that I've not seen anywhere else. And I believe it can be a real game changer. And I really hope it completely shifts how we've always thought about money, that it truly is the greatest lever we can use for positive change.
Yeah. So what do you, just thinking about what you're saying, how big of a change do you think we would have in this world if all the solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and business owners went to this philosophy of helping their community? Can you imagine the change we would have? That would be mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing. I think that's a good word for it. And obviously, when you think of it like a scale, there's always some people over here that say that will never work. I'm not going to do that. It'll just never work. Others over here that say that sounds great, but it's always the middle. You think about any election, it's always the undecideds that tilt the scale one way or the other. And my hope is to do this is the total naysayers, I'm not as worried about that because they're very hard to convince otherwise. The people over here are probably going to buy the book and say, Derrick, I've been waiting for this, or in some cases, I may be doing part of this, but you've helped fill in the gaps for me. But the undecideds, I think, are ripe. And I think those people want something and they've known that it could be better. They've known that there's a better way to make more money, a better way to do more with their money, but they needed a framework and a structure to do it. And much like running a campaign, my goal is to get out there and let people know if you're not making the money you feel you deserve and you're not making the impact in the world you've always wanted, there is a better way for your money today. And not just for you individually, but for your customers, for your clients. And you become the guide to help them be that hero in their giving story while they're making more money and enjoying the life they've always thought was possible. That's my vision for everyone listening and for countless people all over the world.
Well, I'll tell you, that is definitely a win-win philosophy, a win-win framework. There's no loser. Everybody wins with that type of philosophy. So, Derrick, thank you so much for being on the show today and being on the podcast. There is so much gold that you've said in here, and I cannot wait for your new book. And all of us that are listening right now, go up to his website. It's goodmoneyframework.com. You've got your 7-step framework up there for people to go through, and connect with Derrick, because I have not seen a lot of people. I talk with a lot of people, and I have not seen a lot of people that have that mindset to help like you do. And I cannot wait to dive in more, because I truly think that, going back to the beginning, we cannot get unless we give. And this is a perfect way to give and get and win and win. Everybody wins. So thank you so much for taking the time today to be on the show. I cannot wait for this one to go out, because we are going to, all of my tribe is absolutely going to love everything within this episode. So thank you so much.
Sean, my pleasure. I've really enjoyed this, and it's always nice when two like-minded folks get together. Love what you're doing, and it was an honor to be with you today. Thank you.